Right, welcome everybody to Good Medicine Way. We're coming to you here from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the land of enchantment. But some people say when they get here, it's kind of like the land of entrapment because you never leave because it's so beautiful. And I've been out here 25 years now, so don't no plans to move anywhere. So it's beautiful. But we're here in the land of the Tiwa people, the Hopi, the Navajo, and the Apache. And I always add on that within Albuquerque, there's also over 127 different tribes that live here. And there's probably even more than that now if we were to look. Albuquerque has just been a hub ever since relocation time. So that's part of the world that we have here. Plus the schools that we have here are very good with that. So we're going to go into our opening prayer. It's going to be the Beatitudes response reading.
Yeah, let me
put that up on the screen.
Yeah, this is the one that Terry Wildman wrote. So it comes from the Beatitudes in the First Nations version. So I guess I'll do the leader bits, and then everybody else can do the everybody else bits.
Okay.
All right. So again, if you have any sage or medicine or whatever that you want to light up for the prayer, this would be the appropriate time to do it.
Yeah, and we do that here as well with the shell. We don't light a whole lot, but just enough to send up our prayers.
Creator's blessing rests on the poor, the ones with broken spirits.
The above is there to walk.
Creator's blessing rests on the ones who walk a trail of tears.
For he will wipe the tears from their eyes and comforts them.
Creator's blessing rests on the ones who walk softly and in a humble manner.
The earth, land, and sky will welcome them and always be their home.
Creator's blessing rests on the ones who hunger and thirst for wrongs to be made right again.
They will eat and drink until they are full.
Creator's blessing rests on the ones who are merciful and kind to others.
Their kindness will find its way back to them, full circle.
Creator's blessing rests on the pure of heart.
For they are the ones who will see the Great Spirit.
Creator's blessing rests on the ones who make peace.
It will be said of them, they are the children of the Great Spirit.
Creator's blessing rests on the ones who are hunted down and mistreated for doing what is right.
For they are walking the good road from above.
And that is it.
All right.
Oh, may it be so.
I'll share, after the song, I'll share little creation insights that I learned just this past week from my dogs. Yeah.
All right, let me get the words up. So this is, we did this a while ago, but it's a version of They Will Know We Are Christians by Our Love, but just kind of indigenized just a little bit. This is how we
right. Cue up the Lord's Prayer. I'll share this little piece. Creation Insights is we introduced that because the Lord speaks to us through what He has made. And this past week, my daughter and son-in-law were here, and they brought their dog with them. And the dog was a little bit high-strung, young, just a pup yet, but just as big as my dog. And her name is Luna. She's like a Malamute. Yeah, very, very strong. My dog is a shepherd mixed with Kelpie, and very just like, she's just as mellow as can be. She's about 7 years old, and one thing I do with them is when I train dogs, the older dog will mentor the younger dog. And what I have done with them is get them so that they wear a harness so that it's around their midsection, and then I hook their two harnesses together just so that they latch together. So when they walk, the one can pull all he wants, but the older one will just go like, "Hey, slow down, I'm leading this walk, and I will go as fast as I want to go." And so the younger dog, slowly, after a week's of walking with the older dog, started walking slow with that dog. And they learned to stop at the street and the sidewalk, and they would sit at the same time, and they would only cross the road when I would give them directions to say, "Cross the road." So that's how I was raised with my uncle. And he used to tell the story of how horses were trained. Horses were trained, they would hook them up to a wagon, and they would have a bar that went across, and each horse would have their own harness that hooked to the bar. I forget what they called it, an evener. And that evener had a center point that hooked to the wagon. So when they pulled each other, what happened is that the younger horse was stronger, would end up pulling more than the older one. And so that was the way that they nurtured and they trained horses to take over when the older ones got too old. And that's how he trained me. So my uncle would take me along, and like the evener, he led me into Christian ministry by showing me as I walked alongside him. And I only walked alongside him as fast as he would go. And I learned how to be a pastor that way. So I wanted to share that with you. And now we're going to our Reading Creator's Word, the Lord's Prayer from the First Nations version here. And Adrian, here, challenge you to learn this also from the First Nations version. Unless you're a 1611 King James English speaker. Yeah.
All right. Creator sets free, shows us how to pray. O great Spirit, our Father from above, we honor your name as sacred and holy. Bring your good road to us, where the beauty of your ways in the spirit world above is reflected in the earth below. Provide for us day by day the elk, the buffalo, the salmon, the corn, the squash, and the wild rice, all the things we need for each day. Release us from the things we have done wrong. In the same way, we release others who have done wrong to us. Guide us away from the things that tempt us to stray from your good road, and set us free from the evil one and his worthless ways. Aho, may it be so.
All right. So next time we see you, Adrian, we'll challenge you to say that prayer for us a cappella, I guess I will say, by memory. So that's what we do. So we're going to go quickly through some of the announcements that we have here on our smoke signals. We have a group of Methodist leaders coming this week that are coming in on tomorrow night, and they're going to be here. They're called the Native American International Caucus. There'll be some 25 individuals, retired pastors. There'll be DSs, church leaders, missionaries, even younger folks, like my daughter Sean Dean is now on this committee. Our coach for church planting, Carol Lakota Easton, is also on this committee, so we get to host them here at our facility here, and because they've heard about Good Medicine Way, and they want that group to come and see where we meet and get to know us a little bit better. So pray for that. We're going to be having a whole week with them coming up. And then next week I'll be heading out to Los Alamos. That's where they created the atomic bomb. So I'm going to drop a bomb on them with talking to them about contextual ministry. And they've been invited to come. That church wants to get to know us so they can be a supporter of Good Medicine Way. So I'll be going up there this coming weekend. And then our next speaker next week is going to be the director of NATES, is Sherry Russell. She's going to be talking to us about all the things that are involved and maybe a little history of how we got started, but how NATES has grown into this indigenous seminary teaching format that we do. She's going to explain it of all the courses that we offer, the pedagogy and andragogy way that we teach, all from an indigenous perspective. So, and we are fully accredited by the Association of Theological Schools. A couple of our professors are here. Kimberly Medicine Horn is one of those professors as well. So she's always on here. Gene Stevenson is our registrar. So he's always on here too. There he is, yeah, bearded. Yeah, he's got that good beard going there yet for the winter, I guess. There, winter's coming. So that's going to be taking place. So I will be on the road at that time, but I will come in just like this. I will be virtual from out of state here. I'm heading up to Detroit to do a cradle board teaching. And right now, from my count, there are over 300 of my style of cradle boards throughout Michigan and the Midwest now. There's been a revitalization of the use of raising babies in the cradle board. And a long story about that is that Laura and I raised our kids that way, and people found out about us, and I've been teaching now for the last 9 years on and off at different communities up there. So with that, I'll just turn it over. We have a book. I think some of you have bought it already, but we got a book that we're going to be starting. Let me grab mine here. We did a whole month's talk about Richard Twist. Every week we showed a different video of Richard Twist because I wanted this community to get to know of him because he really just kind of sparked everybody's interest in doing contextual ministry. He was just an amazing guy. So we're going to be reading this book starting tomorrow night. So we'll from 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Remember that Mountain Time. We're going to start with the preface written by Terry LeBlanc, and then the introduction. Those will be that's as far as we'll go because there's a lot of meat in that little bit, and then we'll go on to chapter 1 the following week. So with that, we're going to learn a bit more about who Richard Twist was and his influence in contextual ministry. Just a little bit of update. Some of you have been following Laura and I as her uncle has been missing out there in the northeast part of Arizona, out there in Kayenta area. The actual town is called Cow Springs. So our uncle has been out there and he's been missing for over a month, but some of it is very suspicious and the police are involved. But there is no new information to share with anybody. He's still missing. So just keep the prayers coming, and we'll hope for the best on all of this. Because it's one of those things. It used to be very concerned about missing and murdered Indigenous women, but now it's missing and murdered Indigenous people that is taking place out here. And with our governor and different ones, they're taking it a lot more serious now when Native American people are coming up missing. So with that, we're going to turn it over to our giveaway song and talk to everyone. If you have not given to Good Medicine Way, we have many different ways that you can. And last week, I think I said, if Good Medicine Way has been good medicine to you, help support us. because we have been able, with the group you see on screen here, and the numbers. Last week's speaker had over 60, we had 67 views the following week, and that people are gaining and learning from all the teachers that we have, not only on tonight when they can make it and be with like you guys on the screen. We're influencing a lot of people because we do in person, the people you see on Zoom, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. So Brian's going to bring up a couple of things to share with you. We call it our giveaway blanket, and we have a QR code blanket that'll show on the screen there. And if you never use it, it's like super simple to use. You put your camera on it, you touch the little yellow button, and it goes to a screen there. It allows you to give in many different formats there, however you'd like to give. If you have a little bit to give, or if you have a lot to give, it'll all go towards our aim is to present the message of the gospel to many people in this virtual new generation of people, not just sitting in the pew on Sunday mornings. This is a format that is just kind of taking off right now, and we want to take advantage of it because there's many people, not just you all, but many people have been watching our programs, and we have over 100 different programs now on our live stream and the archives. So I'll turn it over to Brian here, and he'll tell you how you can give.
Yeah, so as Casey said, we're going to put a digital blanket up on the screen. There's a couple QR codes on it. One is PayPal specific, if that happens to work better for you. If that doesn't matter for you, use the one that has the Good Medicine Way logo on it, because that just connects direct to our account, and we don't pay any extra fees or anything on it. If you prefer not to give online, our mailing address will also be up on the screen, so you can mail things there. It doesn't have to be financial stuff, but if you do give financially, we are still in the midst of our matching grant, so anything you give will be doubled. And but if you have other things you would like to give non-financially, we always welcome that. A lot of the blankets, the flutes, the smudges we have, a lot of the different instruments are all things that have been gifted to us. So that can go to the mailing address. And if you have, you would like to contribute to Good Medicine Way in some way, but not sure quite how to do it, just send us an email to gmw4abq@gmail.com. Again, that's the letters GMW, the number 4, and the letters abq@gmail.com. And let's have a conversation, and we'll figure out how to have you contribute in some way, because we always love to build community and to get people involved in that way. And everything I just said is also pinned to the top of our Facebook page, so you can always get it from our Facebook page. Yes, I did say that.
Okay. I was looking at something. The matching grant.
And also, the book study that Casey mentioned, that will also be posted on the Facebook page. It'll either show up later tonight or early tomorrow, and that'll have all the information in the Zoom link there. Or if you'd like to, you can send us an email to gmw4abq@gmail.com and just say you want the link for the book study, and then we can send it to you directly. And let me get the digital blanket up, and then I'm going to do a song that was written by Glenn Kaiser, who those of you who were around will remember last time Jonathan Miracle came through. Glenn Kaiser came down from Chicago, pastor and a good friend of mine from Chicago, and did some songs. But this is he did a lot of like blues stuff when he was here. But this is a worship song that he wrote. Behold the Lamb.
All right, we'll now go into reading of Creator's Word, and Auntie D is going to be reading that for us.
And so the first scripture that we're going to read I'm going to take it. It's Proverbs 29:7, reading it from the First Nations version, Psalm Proverbs that just came out, this first scripture. Those with good hearts care deeply about justice for the poor, but the bad-hearted have no such concern. The next scriptures is Amos 5:21-24, and I'm going to read that from the Ryrie Study Bible. That's just always been one of my favorites. So Amos 5:21-24, I reject your festivals, nor do I delight in your solemn assemblies, even though you offer to me burnt offerings and your grain offerings, I will not accept them. And I will not even look at the peace offerings of your fatlings. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I'll not even listen to the sound of your harps. But let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. And then the third scripture is 2 Corinthians 5:14-21. We're reading that from the First Nations version. The love shown to us by the Chosen One has taken hold of our hearts, because we know that if one has died for all human beings, then all of us died. He died for all, so that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for the one who died and rose for them. So from now on, we'll no longer look at others through weak human eyes. Even though we used to see the Chosen One in this way, that is not how we see him now. I'm saying that anyone who has been joined together with the Chosen One is now part of the new creation. For in the Chosen One, the old creation has faded away, and the new creation has come into being. It is the Great Spirit himself who has done all of this. Through the Chosen One, Creator's removed the hostility between human beings and himself, bringing all creation into harmony once again. The Great Spirit has chosen us to represent him in this sacred task of helping others find and walk this path of peacemaking and healing, turning enemies into friends. The Great Spirit was not holding people's broken ways against them. Instead, he was working in the Chosen One to bring all people back into harmony with himself. He's now given us the honor of bringing this message to others. So we now represent the Chosen One. It is as if Creator is speaking through us, calling out for all people to walk the path of being restored back to the Great Spirit. Creator sets free Jesus, the one who knew no broken ways, was chosen by the Great Spirit to bear our broken ways so that we would become the ones who represent his right ways.
All right, we're now going to go into a centering, a stillness time, and after that, I'll introduce our speaker. before I introduce Adrian Jacobs here, I found a picture of what I was trying to explain there. The two dogs. They're now on separate. They're now on separate leashes, and then the one only does what the older one does. So that kind of thing. So if you ever want your dog trained, find somebody else. It's a lot of work. so, so our good friend Adrian Jacobs, known him a long time now. And he also has known Richard Twist for a long time. And we still know Richard Twist. He's just part of our heart and our feelings and our mind now. And we just carry him with us. Adrian goes back some time here, back to South Dakota when they started NATES. The acronym for that is the North American Institute for Indigenous Theological Studies. And that got, maybe he'll tell a little bit of that story, but that's how we started out there in South Dakota. And then that, bad news happened with that. The land, what I understand, was kind of sold out from underneath them, and that kind of dissolved. But the acronym NATES has always carried on, and it's been a part of this world. And Adrian was a big part of that time. I want to give it over to him right now and let him introduce himself in his native way and then he'll be giving us the message. And following that, we'll have our question and response.
Okay. Thank you, Casey. It's good to be here with you and just familiar with Jean and Kimberly as well. And then over the years, we've crossed paths and done things together and been a part of meetings, praying together, walking together, eating together in different settings. And it's always been a relational thing. I think that fundamentally, one of the things that I've concerned myself with is networking. I've always felt like we do things more fully and better all together rather than trying to accomplish everything by ourselves. So it's been a good journey, a long journey to get to know one another. My name is Adrian Jacobs. That's my colonial name. That's how Canada gets its taxes out of me. Adrian Jacobs. My clan name is Gunnison, which means Deer Lodge. I'm of the Turtle Clan of the Cayuga Nation, of the Six Nations Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Our confederacy includes six nations, five originally, but then one was added in 1721. But they include the Mohawk or Ganyangahaga, the Oneida, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, the Seneca, and the Tuscarora. And our communities are scattered throughout New York State and Ontario and Quebec, Wisconsin, and also in Oklahoma. And I'm glad to cite my heritage. The boundary between Canada and the United States is not our boundary. It's not our separation point. It's a colonial idea to put a border right in the middle of our people. And so I'm just glad to be able to speak to folk in the US. I work in Canada with the Christian Reformed Church, and we have a lot of education going on in Canada. It was all the result of the survivors of Indian residential schools. That's what we call them here in Canada. In the US, they call them Indian boarding schools. And a number of years ago, the survivors, because they've been through so much trauma, generally speaking, never talked about the trauma that they experienced. World War veterans and other conflicts like that often went home never speaking of the experiences of their wartime in experiences because they're so traumatic, and our survivors were the same way. But they began to come forward and they began to tell their story, and their survivors actually elicited apologies from the churches that ran the residential schools here in Canada, beginning with the United Church, but also the Presbyterian Church and the Anglican Church. And they even got a confession from the Catholic Church. Took many decades to achieve that, but they finally did. They sued Canada and the churches and won the lawsuit. And what they did was that they, out of the money that they were awarded, they established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And a lot of people call it Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as though Canada was behind it. But the reality is, it's the survivors' Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because they were the ones that said, we need to tell our story to Canadians so that the indignities that were our experience in that policy of assimilation idea should never happen to anybody else again. And we even got the Prime Minister of Canada to publicly apologize for all of the separation of children from their parents, the abuses that they experienced. And we heard from the Prime Minister of Canada say that it was wrong, that the policy of assimilation was wrong. And colonial apologies are not always, worth the little bit of warm breath that that breathed them out. But when that apology happened on June the 11th, 2008, I looked up in the gallery of the House of Commons where our elders were sitting, who had been through the residential schools and who were survivors. When they heard from the authority of the land to say what happened to them was wrong, I saw them weep. And although, sometimes I say you can only trust a colonial government as far as you can throw it, I said the apology meant something to me because it meant something to the survivors. And so in Canada, there's been a big effort to come to terms with what happened to everybody, not only in the residential schools where kids were hundreds of kilometers or miles away from their families and separated from language and the land and the community. They also compensated the day schools as well that were on our reservations all across Canada. And they recognized that although we were not necessarily separated from our families every night, we still had the same curriculum, the same efforts to destroy our languages and our culture and our connection to the land. That was still a part of the agenda. And I remember the last time I was with Richard Twist, we had a Nate's retreat in Oregon. We had been with Randy Woodley, and we had gone up to a retreat center that he identified. So we spent good time together. We had a great retreat together. And we came back to Portland. And I spent extra days with Richard after the retreat. But we also went to an Idle No More protest where we did a big round dance in Portland and in the city center there. And it was really good to have all of our Nate's board and faculty, people that were connected to us, joining together with other Indigenous people in Portland, but also allies, and dancing together. There's something about dancing together that differences and all of the other things kind of disappear. And we're all doing the same thing together. Many people who are left-footed only are forgetting about their self-consciousness and are dancing along together with everybody else. And so that was a great time. And it was a month later that Richard left this earthly journey and carried on his way. And but it was a very fond memory in 2013 when we had that retreat in Oregon. And so I wanted to highlight these scriptures. 2 Corinthians 5:14-21 essentially for me is the whole matter of Jesus and why he came. It's all about reconciliation, all about a new creation. It's all about forgiveness. It's all about healing the broken ways, as the translation reads, and healing and bringing together the brokenness. And the word that's used there from the Greek is the word reconciliation. And the word itself means to make friends again, the Greek word, to make friends again. And when I was in Manitoba, more the central and western part, the prairie part of Canada, the nations out there didn't like the word reconcile because they knew the meaning was to make friends again. And they said, we were never friends to begin with. You stole our land right away. You starved us out of our connection to the land. You made us dependent on you. And you never treated us like friends. You brought the army against us. And Canada's federal army was the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And so the nations out there, whenever they heard the word reconciliation, they didn't like it because they said we never were friends. So they were saying it's not so much reconciliation, but conciliation. We need to become friends. Now, my people, Haudenosaunee, met the Dutch in 1613. And we came up with an agreement with the Dutch. And we put it into a wampum belt, the 2-row wampum. And it's a long white belt made of quahog and another kind of white bead. The quahog shell was a purple bead, but the purple and white beads were put into a belt, and it represented the river of life. And there were two dark lines, two purple lines in that belt traveling up and down the river. One was the Dutch sailing ship. We recognized there was different technology. They spoke another language. They dressed differently. They were just different people than us. They had different ways. We said, well, we've traveled this same river of life. It literally would have been the Hudson River. Said we've traveled this same river in our canoe, in our own technology, utilizing our own language, our own leaders. We have our own ways of doing things. And we said, we share this river of life and we're, going to continue on into the future. And we said there's going to be 3 rows of beads that are between us to describe our relationship. The first bead, they said, row of beads, was the desire for friendship. The Dutch wanted trading partners, but we told them we want friends. And the kind of friends that we make is family. So that's what that we said, we're not just interested in, a trading partner. We want friends, we want family. So that's the first row. The second row is the heart of peace, is where you are completely accepted and respected for who you are. I used to describe the spirit of this by explaining to people that when I would visit my mother in her home, I said I would melt into the couch. And by that, I mean, I didn't have to ever worry that anybody was going to attack me. I did not have to guard my heart. I didn't have to, fight for my place or yell to be heard. I could simply relax and be myself, and I was totally respected for who I am. So that's the heart of peace. That's what peace is, not just not fighting. It's like you're completely respected for who you are. And then the third row that described a relationship between us was our people have this idea of the concept of a good mind. And the idea of a good mind is that when you think right, when you think in a good way, you have this kind of good relationship with each other, and it can be strong. And we actually said, we used the symbol of linking arms together. Each one would be connected. And when you hold your hands like that together, it's a strong connection. It's more than holding hands. It's stronger than that. It's like a chain. There's 3 links between us. And we said that is what that's what we were looking for with the Dutch. And for decades, it happened. We were good friends. In fact, one of our major leaders, Joseph Brandt, who brought our people to the Six Nations Reserve in southern Ontario, the 6 miles on either side of the Grand River after the American Revolution. Joseph Brandt, his dad died, who was Mohawk. His Mohawk dad died, and his Mohawk mother married a Dutchman. So the reality is the relationship we had with the Dutch was family. We had that real relationship of friendship. So Haudenosaunee people can literally say, yes, we need to reconcile or to become friends again because we started out as good friends to begin with. And we've fallen away from that. It's not so much that we have fallen away, but our partners have left us. They've abandoned us, and they've treated us badly. But we have remained true to our side of the Truro Wampum. And so I always say that, when we offered that back to the Dutch, I remind the Dutch church that I work with now, it's not all Dutch now, but it has a history in the Dutch. I say to them, when you met us in 1613, we were the other sheep Jesus was talking about when he said, other sheep have I, not of this fold, not of the disciples and their knowledge of the followers of Jesus right then and there in the first century. He says, I'm going to go and to that other flock, and bring them, and we're going to make one flock. And I said to the Dutch to the Dutch Heritage Church, we were the other sheep that Jesus was talking about, and when you met us, you didn't see us for who we are and were to you. You saw us as Canaanites that needed to be cleared out of the land. And instead of the joining together of the sheepfold, we had genocide instead. And I said, Europeans, that's what they did. They claimed to be the new Israel, and this land was the new Canaan for them. And I said, no, you met us as the other sheep, and you should have listened to us. And I tell the church today, I said, we were more Christian than you were. And because of this scripture, because of 2 Corinthians 5:14-21, but also in that Proverbs scripture, I think the translation you read said that good-hearted people care about justice for the poor. And people that don't have that good heart have no such concern. So justice matters. I talk about, justice for our people at Six Nations. And I get theologians and pastors coming up to me and trying to dismiss what I say by saying, oh, that's this social gospel. And it's like, it doesn't matter. And it's like, haven't you read the Bible? And even the that passage in Amos, and I'll read to you what it says in the Message Bible. I know it's a bit of a paraphrase too, but it puts it in more modern language. He says, I can't stand your religious meetings. I'm fed up with your conferences and conventions. I want nothing to do with your religion projects, your pretentious slogans and goals. I'm sick of your fundraising schemes, your public relations and image making. I've had all I can take of your noisy ego music. When was the last time you sang to me? Do you know what I want? I want justice, oceans of it. I want fairness, rivers of it. That's what I want. That's all I want. So when I read that, it's kind of like, that is what really is at the heart of God. God cares about the justice. And I want to tell you, before I end here, I would just want to share a quick story about what we've been dealing with in Canada. So I want to talk to you. I did this message recently at a Lutheran church in Toronto about practical reconciliation. You can talk all kinds of things about theory, and I like what you're talking about here and how you do things at Good Medicine Way. It's practical. It's here. It's now. It's with us. It's different than just hearing a sermon preached. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about this practical idea about justice over land issues and the land back idea. Now, our people, before, back in the days before the white man came, our people were south of Lake Erie and along the Adirondacks. The Mohawks were on the east. They lived by the Mohawk River that flowed into the Hudson River that went down to New York. And Next to them were the Oneidas, and then they were around Oneida Lake. And then there's a little lake near Rochester called Onondaga Lake. That's where the Onondaga people were. And our major village there was called Ganada Goa. Ganada, it means village, and Goa means big village. So actually the word Canada comes from Ganada, which means village. And it was, was a description of our capital, in a sense, in the Onondaga Nation. My people were the Cayugas, and we were Cayuga Lake is the longest finger lake in upstate New York, and our people lived there. And then just west of us were the Senecas. There's a big hill near Rochester, and their villages were there. And so that was our original homeland. And during the American Revolution, our people, a bunch of our people, especially the Mohawks and the Cayugas, some of the Senecas, some of the Onondagas supported the British, but the Oneidas and the Tuscaroras, they were the ones that supported the Americans. And so when they drew the border between the British territory, which was Canada, and America, they drew it through the St. Lawrence River, through Lake Ontario, down the Niagara River, and through the middle of Lake Erie. So they drew the border behind us. So we felt unsafe. In fact, General Sullivan had come through and burned all our villages and girdled our peach trees and burned the caches of corn, so that we had nothing to go back to. So our leader, Joseph Brant, got this 6 miles. This other picture here is a map of southern Ontario. There's Hamilton here and Toronto. This is Lake Ontario, and down here is Lake Erie. 6 miles on either side of the Grand River, from Port Maitland on Lake Erie up to didn't mean to turn up to Dundalk. So there's about 950,000 square or 950,000 acres. We only have this small portion left, this Six Nations Reserve. It's 5% of what we were originally set aside for us. So the colonial Canadian system, they stole it from us. And so we've had a conflict over land near our reserve. And Mennonite Central Committee Ontario wanted me to tell them the history of the land and of our original land, that they've got, the Mennonites they were supposed to be leasing our lands and paying us lease money. So there's 26 churches in the Grand River Tract. They actually hired me to teach their churches, and they introduced me to my own traditional government at Six Nations. And after we had that introduction, Rick Hill, who's one of their knowledge keepers and knows a lot about the wampum belts, we had lunch together, and he said, "Do the churches pay taxes?" And I knew he was referring to property taxes. And I said, "No." He said, he then responded by saying, "Good, then they're not a part of the system." He said, "Wouldn't it be great if we had a spiritual covenant with the churches, where the churches over there could acknowledge Six Nations jurisdiction over their land, over their church land? They could pay a token lease payment and continue their spiritual work." He wasn't saying, the churches, get out of here, leave our lands. That you can pay your lease payment and do your spiritual work. And then he said, if the church ever decommissioned, the land could return to Six Nations. So this was in 2007 when we first heard this. So our people have a real appreciation for strawberries, and our traditional way, we have a Thanksgiving ceremony in June to thank the Creator for the strawberries. So we thought about bringing churches together to celebrate this Thanksgiving for the strawberry, but also to have communion. So in 2007, we held an event that we call Strawberry Festival, Corporate Repentance, and Communion Service. And we held it at our church at Six Nations. And we had Cindy Ruakera, who is a Maori lady, singer and speaker, and she was powerful. She did her Maori thing, like the Maori do hukas and very compelling calls to welcome, etc. So she was there. And then we had Gabriel Geffen, who is a Messianic Jew, who at that time was living in the old Jewish quarter of the walled city of Jerusalem, Messianic Jew. And so we had these witnesses from opposite sides of the world to our little church at Six Nations. There was probably 40 people there for that first event. And we talked about that spiritual covenant. So we did it again the next year. And we called it Strawberry Thanksgiving Ceremony Communion Service. And instead of doing it like church way, we set up our church to function like a longhouse. In our Haudenosaunee ways, we have a longhouse, and on either side facing each other are different sets of clans, and the ceremonies go back and forth. One person will do something on one side, the response will come on the other side, and it goes back and forth all the time. So we set our church up that way, and we did the event that way. And I opened with a Haudenosaunee Thanksgiving address, which opens all of our meetings. It's a greeting and a thanking of all of creation. And there was about 50 or 60 people that showed up for that. And then nothing happened really. We kept talking with them, with various churches. Rick and I kept the conversation going for 17 years. 17 years we kept talking, meeting on occasion. We'd talk back and forth. I'd go and speak in their churches. Rick would, be talking with their leadership, etc., for 17 years. So in 2024, we renewed this idea of coming together for Strawberry Thanksgiving and Communion. And Mennonite Central Committee Ontario helped us with the organization here. And we had 160 people show up. 11 denominations were there. 54 churches were represented. And there were 13 unions, including labor unions, teacher unions, and social justice groups. And one church came forward and said, we'll take our first step. So this was after 17 years. Sterling Avenue Mennonite Church says, we commit 1% of our income to the spiritual covenant as our first step. And they brought a check for $4,000. So we did it again last year. And we held it in the Mennonite territory in Kitchener. Again, we called it Strawberry Thanksgiving and Communion. And we had 170 people show up. Again, there were over 44 churches. There were universities involved this time, not just the labor unions and teacher unions, but the universities were there too. And we had another church come forward and say, we also are committing, and they brought a check for, I think, $2,000. My own home church, Meadowlands Fellowship, CRC Church, they made that same 1% commitment, and they said, we are committing $7,000 annually to this covenant. So at the end of our meeting together, I told them in advance, this is the gymnasium, and across the aisle is another big room where we held the event. I told them at the beginning, we're gonna go over to the gymnasium and we're gonna dance. And I figured, a lot of people would take the time between our meal and to escape. But all 170 people, Mennonites, Lutherans, Anglicans, Baptists, Christian Reform, United Church people, they all came over and they danced. We danced together, all 170 of us together. And the idea for us is that we would restore the circle. This is how we made friends. We had our circle. In a circle, everybody is front row. And then when you share from the circle, everybody is looking at you and you're looking at everybody, and you have center stage, etc. So this is the desire to restore the good circle that began our journey together. And we said, we chose a place where the money could go, the Six Nations Polytechnic, because it had an Indigenous Knowledge Center that Rick Hill had been a founding person in it. So it was going to be restoring Indigenous knowledge. And you can actually get a Bachelor of Ongwahoe languages, either in Mohawk or Ganyangahaga or Cayuga, or our way of saying that is Goyo Gohono. And they're working on a master's degree. So it's a recognized, within a colonial education system, they had that. But they also preserve Indigenous knowledge and wisdom, and they do community-based research. And we said the churches, through their assimilation and the Indian residential schools, etc., they were the ones that helped us lose our languages and culture. And we said, you can now be a part of the restoration. This is an act of reparations, that you can do something about the land that was stolen. You can do something tangible and not just apologize and go your way. And nobody knows any different that you apologized. And so, again, there's the 4,000 from one group, and all the people that came to these events. We're very happy for all of them. Before our last event, we had 24,000 in the fund. It's much larger than that now. So every year we're going to continue to do it again and really have that amount updated as we go, to be able to say back to Six Nations, here is what churches are actually doing to make reparations. And Canada is really working hard that land can't be returned to our people. They do their best to stop that from happening. So we're trying to figure out, how do we get around that so that the land can be used by our people as well. So there's all kinds of creative solutions going on. And at the heart of all of this is building relationships. I tell people that when we had our first meetings back in 2007 and 2008, that the Mennonite people fell in love with my dad over lunch. We had meetings together to talk about the issue. We had lawyers and researchers and negotiators and neighbors and activists all sharing their story. And then we ate lunch together, and then we visited some of the sites. But over lunch, the Mennonite folk heard my dad's story of growing up in Caledonia, where our people lived as neighbors with the people in Caledonia, and they had good relationships. and that how that the young people who don't know that story have forgotten about that, but the elders remember. The older people in Caledonia, they remember our story too. And so my dad was asked by a church in Waterloo North, church, Mennonite church, to come and tell his story to their 50s plus group. And so I took my dad when he was 79 years old. He was a cement truck driver for 35 years of his life. I took him for his first public speaking engagement when he was 79 years old. And that's what relationship building is all about, eating together and listening to one another and being friends, actually being friends. And then putting some, I like to say it this way, put your money where your mouth is. Don't just talk about it. Put your land where your heart is. Do something about this. Demonstrate to the community that it matters and it will mean something for them. So to me, that's what I've been involved in, and we're going to do this again. We're hoping that we'll go back to the Six Nations Polytechnic, have 200 people in attendance, and we're going to live stream it as well, just as you're doing here. So we'll probably be in touch with you to learn a little bit about your logistics of how to do that, because I think you've got that down pretty good. But we'll do that very same thing. People all across Canada are asking the same thing. They're saying, what can we do? There were 3 churches in Mennonite churches in Winnipeg who have also made their commitment. I spoke to them years ago about this idea. They are giving 1% of their income to their local Indigenous communities. So, this can apply anywhere in US or Canada. I'm sure it could apply elsewhere in the world too, but that's to me practical reconciliation. Repentance is of the head. You realize you've done wrong. It's of the heart when you apologize, and it's of your hand when you do something different, when you do something to repair. So I just wanted to talk about that and say that this is what I'm involved in, and this is kind of like the growing edge of more and more people are asking all about this, and we're doing our best to. It's not so much us trying to connect and get things done for our community. It's like saying, this is what the churches need to do for all of the communities that are near them. I don't know what those Indigenous communities need, but they know. Get to know them and build that relationship with them. So, time for Q&A.
Right. All right, we're going to go to another reflection time, and then after that, Brian will moderate the question and response time.
All right, the floor is open.
Well, I
Brother,
want to thank you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Brother Adrian, thank you for that. And it just as you were just finishing up, he said from the heart, the head, and then the heart, but then in the hand as to what you're doing. It's exactly like what that scripture was talking about in Amos 5:21 through 24. All of this religious. As a matter of fact, the title of this uh, chapter right here is the rebuke of religious people, because there are many who who talk about doing it all. And just like creator was saying, I don't want all that. I don't delight in that. I'm not even going to accept it. You're out there doing all of this and everything. Show me the real thing. And the real thing will be for justice to roll down like water and righteousness like an ever flowing stream. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, I'll start in a little bit here, and then that'll kind of get people warmed up and then all of a sudden, lots of questions will come up. I know, Adrian, I've heard about what you've been doing for years now, and you're an inspiration. And uh, Good Medicine Way has just taken off in a different direction than church I grew up in. And I always thought that there's got to be a better way. And I just said, the way I was brought up in church, even though I came to faith there, it was not affecting the world around me and the families that I knew. There was just no connection between that. And like you said, the families around us, the traditional people, we were more Christian than the Christians. And it's just the way it was. It's just that they were so standoffish and so against everything that we did. But the native people, they accepted the church people. Just so opposite. But I just want to reflect on that. So,
Okay, and then we got a question through the chat here. Alyssa, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Mohawk part of her name, but she's fairly recently was adopted into the Mohawk Nation through her relationship with Jonathan Miracle. But she asks if you can talk more about the significance of the strawberries. Because she says, I'm new to the community and I'm trying to learn all this stuff. So, what is it with the strawberries for the Thanksgiving thing?
Yeah, one of the things that I've noted, like in churches, people are so familiar with liturgy, and liturgy is um, all about how you put together your services, and then there is like the liturgical year where you have different segments of the year where you prepare for things. So there's the Advent season coming up to Christmas to prepare for the story of Christ becoming incarnate. And then there's the season of Lent where you're preparing for Easter and the stories that lead up to the death and resurrection of Christ, and then Pentecost following that. And so the Jewish people had a liturgical year too, but it was an agricultural year. It tied their spirituality to the agricultural season. So, the various times of ceremony, like the Day of Atonement, are associated with the harvest and the planting and the whole agricultural cycle. Well, Haudenosaunee people have a liturgical Thanksgiving cycle. So, we have the New Year. It's the longest celebration, week or 10 days, late January, early February. We have the Maple Sap Festival when the sap starts flowing in the maple trees. And then we have seed blessing, and then we have the special times to figure out who's going to do what job in the preparation of the gardens and care and harvesting, etc. So we have ceremonies associated with that. And the first fruit that we experience is the strawberry. So it has a special kind of place for Haudenosaunee. And when they talk about the strawberry, they call it the leader of the hanging fruit. It's the first fruit that comes. You have the strawberry and then the raspberry and all of the various kinds of fruit that come in their cycles. But the leader, the first one, is the strawberry. And so it's a special recognized first fruit kind of plant for us. Now, other people have different teachings about it. Like I've heard Anishinaabe people talk about heartberries, etc. But that's not what I've understood it to be. And I'm not saying it's not that, but Haudenosaunee simply recognized the place. And what we do in our ceremonies is greet and thank the strawberries because they are providing for us. Yes, we're thanking the Creator, but it's also recognition of relationship too, and honor and respect for the part of creation that feeds us. And it's such a special in our creation story. Strawberries were in the sky world and were brought to this world, and there's this sense in which the strawberries line the path to the Creator's house. So people, when they have near-death experiences, the phrase that people would use is, "I almost ate strawberries," because that's on the pathway to the Creator. So it's such an esteemed, it's such joy, and the first fruits, it's sweet, it's beautiful, and so it has that special place in our thinking, and so we have that ceremony for that. So that's what I know from the things that I've learned from Haudenosaunee teaching about the strawberry.
Wow, that was a lot. Thanks. All right, Helen, go ahead.
Well, first, I want to thank you for sharing all of this. I think a lot of us have wondered, what can we do and what works? And you shared something that clearly has worked and continues to work. And then as you were speaking about the strawberries, I remembered hearing about a Cherokee story. There was a couple that had a fight, and the wife had stormed out. And I guess Creator wanted them to get to reconciliation, but she had gone so far that she couldn't find her way home. And almost like Hansel and Gretel, the strawberries were what guided her back. And so there again, there's that idea of reconciliation. Now, anyone who's Cherokee here, if you have the clearer stuff, please contribute to that. But I think it fits in so beautifully with what you were speaking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
There's a question here from the YouTube live stream where Cheryl's asking that when the colonial governments drew the borders, that they divided the waters, and did that impact the indigenous people's access to those waters? Do you know anything about that history?
Well, the reality was when we complained, like they signed the Treaty of Paris and no representation for First Nations people. So it was the Treaty of Paris between the Americans and the British. Well, our people immediately spoke up and said, hey, our people are on both sides of the border. In fact, there is a reserve that is in Ontario and Quebec and New York State. It's covers that whole that area. And there's actually a building that one part of it is in the United States, one part is in Canada. And so we were, you know, and the thing that the colonial governments are concerned is always money. They're always concerned about money. You know, that's the whole trade relationship is just top of mind for colonial systems. So when people carry goods from one country to the other, they want to collect duties and tariffs and taxes on it. And our people were saying, well, even the Mohawks there, if they go from one part of their house with their goods and they go to another part of their house, they never left their house. They didn't cross any border. That's their house. And literally, we were telling the British and the Americans that it's not our border. And so the Jay Treaty recognized that for Indigenous people. There was no, that border was not our border, and that we could freely cross with our goods without duties and taxes. And it's recognized in US law, you know, so I could live and work in the United States without getting a green card. All of my kids can live and work in the United States as well. But Canada actually doesn't respect that Jay Treaty. And so, you know, it's not reciprocal. But, you know, our people still go to Niagara Falls every year in July on a Saturday, and we en masse cross the border without paying duties or taxes. We go shopping on the other side, we bring our stuff across, and we don't pay any taxes or duties. We do that every year on just one day. It should be every day, all the
Because
time.
the Holy Spirit owns
But
the land.
it's only one day a year. And so that's the Jay Treaty. Now, I was coming across the border into Canada. Canada is the one that gives you the hard time. I had some groceries, and I said, they were trying to charge me duties on it. And I said, no, the Jay Treaty gives me the right to cross this border. And then they said, well, the War of 1812 stopped all of that because Jay Treaty was 1794. War of 1812 happened, and that went out the window. And I didn't have any answer back to them, and so I paid the duties. But then I remembered that my grandmother had a card. She had a card, and on one side was Jay Treaty, and on the back side was the Treaty of Ghent, 1814. And it restored the provisions that may have been disrupted by the War of 1812. It restored the provisions for Indigenous people to cross the border without any duties or taxes. And actually, there was a court case in Quebec. Mohawk people from Ganawage were trading across the border to the US, and Canada was trying to collect duties on what they were so-called importing into Canada. And the Quebec court judge said he heard about the Silver Covenant chain, which was reiterating the two-row wampum, and how its history has remained that we've continued to trade across the border, and he's dismissed all the charges against the Mohawk leaders there that were trading. So we made small, wins in the courts in different settings like that.
Got a question in-house?
Yeah, this is Ken. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the example of the churches taxing themselves. My grandmother was born in Wellesley, a few miles west of Kitchener, Ontario. She was Amish Mennonite, so what you're talking about feels real familiar with Mennonite Central Committee and all the work they're doing there. I'm inspired by the idea of reparations happening from the churches. I don't think our government here in the U.S. it's going to be a long time before we get to that point. I think it's going to be incumbent on the churches to figure out ways of addressing the issues of some kind of repair. And I love the idea of taxing ourselves. My own congregation here is just about to pay for its mortgage, and I've put on the table the idea of something very similar. I wasn't aware of what had happened over in Ontario, so thank you for the thought. And I'll be taking that back to my Mennonite church here and saying they're doing it over in Canada. We can do it down here, but I think it could happen, and it can happen with any churches that have access to their mortgages. I'm not sure all churches do, but there are creative ways of our congregations finding ways to repair, and we'll figure out where those funds will go. Currently some are coming to Good Medicine Way, but maybe we'll find some real creative ways of making that happen. But I really appreciate your words there. Thank you.
Yeah, in Canada, they give us the same hard time.
Yeah.
Canada has a reputation for being, such a good country of reconciliation. But that's another story coming from us saying, oh, no, they're doing all their best. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars to fight us in court. Canada does that every year. So I say to the churches, I said, you claim to be the conscience of the country. Go ahead and be the leading edge and do what's right and show Canada what they should be doing. So, to me, that's kind of the encouragement. And I'm glad that churches are making that kind of move. Now, I've heard in the United States where church groups and church orders, et cetera, have given back lands to Indigenous people. So that's a great thing. I'm glad for that too. Things like that have happened in Canada as well. So it's good. I think heaven has their hand up. Whoever heaven is.
Thank you for sharing. It was good to hear you share and share stories. I really appreciate the scriptures you chose. I think Proverbs 29:7, what stood out to me was the difference of nature between caring about justice and avoiding concern, and like how God is talking to us in that, and how we approach caring and showing concern, and how that's important in our relationships and interactions. And then Amos reminded me of like how people accept some people, like some acceptance is actually tolerance, So it's like when it says despise the festivals and stench of your medicines, I will not accept them, their offerings and noise. And he cast them away. And it makes me think like, and then he follows it by saying, but let justice roll like a river, righteousness, a never ending stream. And I think about how that goes back to Proverbs 29, about how righteousness is often mistaken for caring, and how they're two different things, but both of them are necessary. It's just finding balance. And then the last thing that I thought about was he has committed us to a message of reconciliation. And before he tells us that we're committed to reconciliation, he says and recalls the shared purpose and memory, because he understands how foundational and critical that is for reconciliation. And then it talks about being an ambassador. And I really think like being an ambassador is about letting God use you as freely as he gave himself for us. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Go ahead, Helen.
I wanted to add that when you began talking about the kind of reparations there, I was getting a little worried, like, oh no, is the church really going to follow up on it, or is this going to be one more horrible story? But it was very heartening to hear that they have kept their word on it and that it has made a difference. I was thinking how true conciliation um, requires something from the person who's done it wrong. It's the idea of restorative justice. You're trying to restore that party to the state they were at before the harm occurred. And I know there can be multiple paths to that. It's not, some people think, oh, that's just a civil trial, you're just paying with money. No, you have to give up something of your own time, your own comfort, um, your own convenience, and you need to do it. Even the wrongdoer needs to do it so that they can grow spiritually and get out of that path. So I was thinking, it reminded me of some of the teachings of 12-step programs too, like how I think step 9 is you have to go and seek out the people that you've wronged and try to make peace with them. But I think often we seem to think either that we can just say sorry and that's it, or that we can throw money at something and that'll make it okay. But you have to give something more personal. You have to be willing to sacrifice and not always be on top with it. So.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I know that one of the things that Mennonites were really thinking about is that relationship building piece, because that's where you really recognize that it's not just a matter of, checking a box. It's having a relationship with somebody and doing something instead of what was done, instead of the damage and the lying or the not keeping your word. It's like having friends. And like I can just say, I live this. I have friends, and I've made friends, Mennonite friends, all across this country, and other people as well. And we enjoy one another's company. And to me, that's what this is really all about, because Jesus came, like if you're reconciled to God and I'm reconciled to God, then we should be able to get together and work well together. Because, that's why I could never understand racism. How can you have that when you're both reconciled to God and God doesn't have anything but good relationships with somebody? How can I have a bad relationship with him? That just doesn't seem to work.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning because Helen, what you were talking about touches a lot on kind of restorative justice kind of concepts. And I think anytime restorative justice concepts come up, I think it's important to note that those ideas actually came from indigenous people and indigenous practice. Rupert Ross, who did a lot of work in Canada, he was a Canadian magistrate who was working with different indigenous communities. And basically, to really make a small nutshell of the story, they were having a lot of hard times in figuring out how to deal with crime issues in some of these communities. And some of the grandmothers of this community came to him and said, why don't you let us do it our way? Because the way that you do it, the victim isn't even recognized. Like it's about the criminal trespassed the law. And so it's the offenses against the state. And so the victims of the crime don't even matter, because it's like the state gets paid the fines, the state gets paid the money, the state puts the person in jail, and the victims are just kind of left on the side, still broken and empty. And so they were like, that's why your system doesn't work. So so if you're interested in those connections, yeah, just look up Rupert Ross, and he's written a lot of books about it. But I think it's because I think a lot of times people try to think of, restorative justice as some kind of natural outgrowth of the colonial system just getting better, but it's not. They got the ideas from the indigenous people who had been living it for eons and eons.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, very good. I think we got some really good questions and really give us some ideas to go forward here. Um, how do we get you to come down to the States here and start that program with us here? Because I think Good Medicine Way is probably a platform where that could get some traction. So,
Yeah, we have some connections with Red Mesa and the CRC work there, and Richard Silversmith, Darlene, and Susie.
okay.
So I almost had a trip there, and we'll just make it happen and then connect to Albuquerque too. So let's
Okay.
let's do
Yep.
that next summer. Choose
All
a
right.
good time where I won't get burnt to a crisp.
Oh, we'll give you gives you a good suntan lotion. We'll give you a good sombrero that you can wear your shade. Yeah, but
Speaking of Darlene Silversmith, she just popped up in the chat on the Facebook live stream,
Okay.
and she was curious as in those gatherings and in the Thanksgiving strawberry gathering and in the meetings that you had that were related to that. Are you guys doing any kind of music and dance as part of those gatherings, and what are you doing?
Yeah, we haven't done a lot of music, but that will be we've done it in the past, and we did do dancing this last time. We're probably going to continue to have that as a part of the day itself. Part of what we have experienced is that eating together is so fundamental. Hearing the story is very fundamental. Mennonites love to sing, and churches in general love to sing, so that's a huge connector. And the idea of, you know, just being able to, the kind of dancing we do is really easy. It's not, nobody has to struggle to figure out how to do it. It's really simple. That's what the genius of the round dance was. It wasn't a complicated thing. You had children and adults and old white men who are dancing a round dance, and I just say, that's a miracle in itself. So yeah, we will incorporate, especially because this coming year is going to be online. So we're thinking about something that you know, we started out at 9:30 and we ended up at 1:30. So that's a long period of time to be online. So we're going to be mixing it up with lots of different things like the music, small group discussions. We different kinds of storytelling. Like some people have told the story of how that 18-year conversation happened with them, and you know what was involved. Other people have taken a shorter journey, like my church, the pastor and a congregant talked about how that came about for them. And so, yeah, we're going to have quite a interactive kind of time for that June the 13th, 2026.
All right. Well, that sounds like something what we can listen to, get involved with, and we live right next to the silversmiths out here. So he has been Richard has been a speaker with us a couple times now. So yeah, well, very good. Well, thank you for that. We're going to turn.
One other
ahead.
quick question. Just somebody asked if you have any published articles or books where people can get a deeper dive into what we've been talking about.
There is a website. It's hosted by commonword.ca that has all the resources about the Strawberry Communion event, the Spiritual Covenant. There are videos there. There are, like somebody put a story from the Canadian Mennonite on that, one of the stories. That's also on this commonword.ca website. And there's podcasts on there, all focused in on the Strawberry Communion. Let's see if this is the one I remember. It was just put into the chat. Yes. Well, there's actually a whole, I don't know what the link is, but on Common Word, there is a separate page that has, like, there's 10 or 15 stories, podcasts, videos, etc., documents, all about the Strawberry Communion. It's talked about from different perspectives by different people, not just me, but other people have spoken into it. So that's that. I can send it to Casey, and then you can pass it on to everybody else.
Yeah, I think that'll work because the person asking about it is often on our Facebook page. So if I post it up on our Facebook page, she'll be sure to find it. And then both Nicole and Dave were moving like hotcakes here to get links in the chat. So we got those going too.
All right. Yeah. Well, very good. We're going to turn it over to our closing song now. And then Sarah Allen. It's like she's going to do our send off. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and this is a round dance, so if you're so inspired.
I have to somehow get this screen to go in a circle. Yeah, just like a big rotation of all the members on there. We had some 18 people on the screen here, Adrian, and I don't know how many, and many on the YouTube and Facebook too. And then the views the following week, yeah, they all increase. And people that can't make it this evening, they pick it up on the following week. right, Sarah.
So I have this book that's kind of older. It's called Earth Prayers, but it's really got a lot of beautiful things in it. And I thought I would share with you tonight this Iroquois prayer. One of the things I try to do every night is to have a time of gratitude before I go to sleep. And so I bring this to you all that it helps you go to sleep better when you're in this act. We return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. We return thanks to the rivers and streams, which supply us with water. We return thanks to all herbs, which furnish medicines for the cures of our diseases. We return thanks to the corn and to her sisters, the beans and squashes, which give us life. We return thanks to the wind, which moves the air and banishes diseases. We return thanks to the moon and stars, which have given us their light and was gone. We return thanks to the sun, that he has looked upon the earth with a beneficent eye. Lastly, we return thanks to the Great Spirit, who embodied all goodness, and who directs all things for the good of his children. Aho.
Thank you so much. It's been a good evening with you, Adrian. And we'll give you some time here. I'd like you to come back again. We've got a rotation going. We've been doing this for several years now. So several people have, like Chris Hakatobi, who says, I was wondering when you're going to have me come back again because it's been a year, he said. So we're looking at that. So one thing I want to end with, everyone, is that, I got my shirt on here that says the Marines. It's 250th anniversary of the creation of the Marine Corps. And, everybody knows that I carry that pretty proudly. But I also had, I got a pair of shoes that I wear at this time here. You can see that? It's my Chuck Taylors. They're all painted up with Marine Corps symbols on it there. So from head to toe, I got that. And I think I posted, I think several of you seen a picture of me. I didn't share one of my boot camp picture. I look like I'm like 16 years old in there and scared. So yeah, I'll share that one next. Yeah, I was scared. The Marine Corps boot camp was a traumatic time. Yeah. Well, appreciate everyone for coming on tonight. A good turnout, and I think we're going to have some really good responses throughout the week here, Adrian. Thank you very much. And next week, remember, we're going to have Sherry Russell. She's going to be talking about NATES, and that, Adrian was a big part of starting NATES back then, and now we are a fully accredited seminary, and she's going to share that, because you guys can all be interested and go on to pursue your master's and doctorate with us. So it'll be all taught by from an indigenous perspective too. That's the main thing about NATES. So you get a whole different worldview of teaching the Bible and theology. So thank you, everyone. We'll give it over to the rest of your week here now. Remember us. We got the family member that's still missing. We have a big group of people coming in here to Good Medicine Way this week, and then I will be on the road for a little bit, and my colleagues here will keep things going while I come on virtually then. Thank you all. Good to see you, Nicole. Thank you for sponsoring and putting that blurb out there with Adrian's note on there. Appreciate you all. Love you all.
Okay.
Keep coming back.
Bye now.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night, guy Michael. And tonight we're going to leave the setup.
I was